Aloha kako, this is Bordessa from liveukulele.com. I'm here to share with you a kind of warm-up exercise you can use to try and get your fingers under control. And for beginning players, it's probably just a stretch to get your fingers in the right place. For more advanced players, you can use it as kind of a basis to really examine your technique and make sure you're playing things in the most efficient way possible. So, it's very simple. It's just a one finger per fret exercise. We talk about having one finger per fret when you're trying to do like picking parts or whatever, and this exercise just follows that to a T. So what happens is you play an open string, and then you play your first finger on the first fret, and then your second finger on the second fret, third finger on the third fret, fourth finger on the fourth fret, and then you move down to the next strings, which would be open C, first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, next string, open E, first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, open bottom string, first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret. And then you can go backwards. And you get a whole another set of muscle movements that'll help you kind of get your fingers into shape. So, that's easy. It's an easy thing to play. It's not supposed to sound pretty. In fact, it sounds quite terrible unless you're really going for a chromatic thing, which can be good. But I wouldn't try and memorize it because there's nothing really to memorize. It's so straightforward. It's easier to remember. So it's just something to get your fingers moving. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're doing it though is, one, I would say, is timing. Timing is super important and often overlooked, especially for beginners. They tend to go fast when they're comfortable with something and then slow down when they're not. And that really, especially if you're playing a song, it really messes with the listener. It's like, you know, going fast and then slowing down. It's kind of distracting, and it really takes away a lot from the groove of the song. So what I would recommend with this is really force yourself to stay on tempo. Even if you find that, oh, this is pretty easy and in this one part I'm really feeling comfortable, don't speed up. Because by building that internal metronome and forcing yourself to just stay on the same beat, you're going to be doing yourself a lot more service, I think, than if you were to play some parts slow, some parts fast. If you're going to take it to the extreme, you can get out the metronome. There's a couple great apps you can get for iPad or iPhone that are free. I can't remember the name, but I'll post a link in the video description. But you can set them for a comfortable tempo, and if you find something that you think you could play every note on each click, you just set it for that amount of time, and then you start playing, and you just follow that click, no matter what. Even if your notes are messed up or whatever, you try and keep going and just follow that click, because timing is the most important thing when you're looking at it from that angle. And then as you go, you can get faster and faster as you be able to play it cleaner and cleaner. If you're really whipping through it, even if you're going at the right tempo, but you're whipping through it and all your notes sound terrible, then you probably want to slow down anyways and try and figure out why and work on getting your notes clean. Other things you can do when you're examining this kind of exercise is making sure that your fingering hand and your picking hand are lined up, and that means you can play any kind of picking you want with this hand. You know, if you're working on just picking with your thumb, you could do that. You could pick with your index finger. You could pick with your index finger and go down, up. Right, you can go alternating thumb, index finger, and any other combination. But you can use it to really work on your different techniques. So if it's getting easy, make it harder. They say to practice what you don't know, because if you're practicing what you do know, you're not learning anything. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're always working on something new, even with something kind of old, you're building on it and you're progressing. Beyond picking and just general timing, you can work on your fretting skills. That includes two things, probably more, but I'll focus on two things. One is getting your fingers in that sweet spot in the fret, instead of, you know, either the middle or a little bit above the middle, to find that spot where it takes the least amount of effort to push down the strings. And what you can do is, just as a general exercise, you could start with a muted string, just with your first finger, and you just slowly push down and keep picking until you start to get a little bit of a buzzy note. Then you push past the buzz, you're really squeezing and you just feel the fretboard right under the string, and then let up again. And then it starts to buzz and you lose it. And then you want to find that point right past the buzz, and that's as hard as you need to play. So you can focus on just pressing just enough and finding the right spot in between the fret to really work on efficient fingering. The second thing is watching your fingers, how they fly over the frets. Kind of fly, because I definitely see people fly. And what I talk about when I say flying fingers is when you when you move to the next one, the rest of your fingers go way away from the fretboard, and they're like, this is their stationary place. This is where they're like, this is their ready position, and that's not very ready. So it's better to try and keep your fingers with a low profile, because then you can move faster. You don't have to move as much when you move. So that's another thing to focus on, is these fingers that are getting ready to go, you keep them low, and then as you finish a note, either you leave the finger where it is because you don't, it can be there because there's a finger higher than it that's blocking off this note, or you can lift that up too as a different kind of, a different spin on the exercise. You can lift it up just a little bit, but as long as your fingers aren't touching the strings, that's as far as they need to move. So you can really, there's a lot of perfection that can happen. I'm still working on this, we're all still working on this, playing just more and more efficient. But that should be some tips to take a simple exercise and really drill some key basic concepts. And I say basic, but you can never learn them too well. And that's what separates the good players from the really great players, is just the amount of time they've spent on things like timing and fingering notes and just overall coordination and skill on their instrument. So hopefully that's interesting. Check us out on the web, liveukulele.com. I'll see you guys around.